So the plot thickens. I made a video here recently, or not recently, it's been a little while ago, about self-driving cars. And I asked my audience, I said, what is it about self-driving cars that interests you? Also, do you really want one? If there was one on the market right now that you could go buy, and would you go buy it? And a lot of people said, no, heck no, I don't want that. And I don't want that either, and I'm concerned, and I've been talking to people at different dealerships, asking them, why is it that car manufacturers are all like on a race to try to get self-driving cars to the market? Because I can't find a very substantial amount of people that actually want to buy them. So what is driving this? Are they just planning on putting it out there and then maybe people will just choose to buy it? And I've been reading these articles, okay? Reading these articles and watching videos on, quote, experts on the subject. And what it comes down to, what they're saying is they usually provide a, well, it's annoying, there's traffic jams, there's, you know, problems with too many parking spaces and all kinds of different things with cars, okay? But it's always boils down, if you actually boil down and where the point in which they're going is to have you give up. Now this is exactly what every one of them saying, okay? Give up ownership of your car, like you don't own your car anymore. And they have collective cars, like a commune type thing, in which a car takes you somewhere and you get out and then it just drives somewhere else and picks somebody else up, and you don't own a car, okay? And so therefore you don't have, so that's the end goal, because all the benefits, almost all the benefits that they're talking about is only going to happen if everybody, okay, that drives in a particular area, like anybody that could drive there, does not own a car, okay? Because the benefits of what they're saying is that land will not be able, will be freed up because you won't need to park your car. You won't have a parking spot at your house. You won't have a parking spot at the grocery store. You won't have a parking spot anywhere you go. There won't have to have parking spaces, because simply the car pulls up, drops you off, you get out, and then when you're done, another car picks you up and takes you home. So the only way you can achieve that is if nobody owns a car, okay? And nobody drives a car from outside into that city. Like let's say you try to implement it in a city. Well, there's going to be people driving to that city from far away, and where are they going to park? Okay, so this is only the benefits in which they're bragging about, and all this stuff as far as like, well, people will be able to drive faster on the road, or the cars themselves will be able to drive faster. There will be so like say less traffic jams and stuff like that, because when people slow down, then there's somebody in the way, and then it creates all these traffic jams. Well, how is that going to be benefit if only some of the cars are self-driving? The only way that you can achieve this is if all the cars, 100%. And I even listened to this TED Talk from this guy from Portland, Oregon, of course. Okay, and you know, he even brags about in the video about how he's from a, you know, progressive town or whatever. And I've never been to Portland, but from what I've heard, it's you know, it has problems, I'll just say that. But anyways, so he was talking about this whole idea that, hey, you know, we need to get politically active. He makes all these assertions with like zero evidence. It's just assertion after assertion, and every assertion is based on the prior one. But anyways, he said, hey, we need to get politically active, and everybody needs to demand, you know, that these changes are made. So that's another affirmation that the idea behind it is not a free will thing. It's you're going to be forced to give up your car. And that's how they're able to achieve these benefits. And that's why, that would explain why the demand is not there. Their demand is not out there enough for self-driving cars to have them on the market. Because and people buy them and pay the extra money. I mean, this costs a tremendous amount of money to come up with this technology, and also the liability is going to be through the roof. So when you have, let's say you have the only self-driving car on the road, you know, there's not going to, let's say you have a city, even let's say a small town like this, 5,000 people. Well, let's say half of them have self-driving cars. You're not going to realize any of the benefits that what that guy is talking about, or in these articles in which they talk about. They're not going to realize the benefit unless you have basically like 90 or 100% compliance with this particular thing. It's very disturbing to me that there's no demand for it. There's not enough demand. I haven't, you know, polled everybody in the United States or whatever, but from what I could tell in the circles in which I'm in, and also, you know, people online that I've talked to, and I've had multiple polls now, like how many people are interested in really wanting to buy this technology, because they're talking about no steering wheel, no pedals, you get in the car and you're fiddling around on your phone and your car's going 70-80 miles an hour on the highway. And like most people are like, that's not, I don't want to get in something like that, okay? Without, you know, like say if you get in like a subway or something like that, it's on a track and there's a designated spot for it to go, and there is, you know, there's no split-second decision that can kill you. You know, I mean, of course there could be an accident or whatever, but if there's just a slight glitch, it doesn't take much when you're driving, you know, 3 or 4 feet on the highway when there's trucks coming. There's not much of a error in steering wheel and turning here to kill you, you know. So that's one of the big issues right there. So for me, but also just giving up control. So, you know, having control over what you're doing is a huge part of being human, in my opinion. Okay, so relinquishing control on a fundamental thing like, you know, you possibly dying is not a very positive step forward, in my opinion. As far as for humanity, maybe it's a something that some people like or whatever, but there's a lot of people that do like to give up control. They like to deny and avoid responsibility. So, you know, hey, maybe there is massive cities like Portland that are just willing to, you know, jump on a autonomous vehicle enforcement or something like that rules. But you won't see me go there. So I'm not sure. So there's no demand. There's not very much demand for the cars. Okay, so I'm like, why is it? So just to give you an example, so there's a lot of there's a lot of things that are happening in the automotive industry that are not consumer driven. Okay, so like say the automatic stop start feature on a car, which literally cuts the engine off when you're sitting at a stoplight or whatever. A lot of people don't like that feature, okay? And like a lot of people, and it's very I don't know, it's just something that people didn't say, hey, I wish my car would just cut off randomly as I'm driving in traffic. Nobody has ever come up with that. Also, the amount of fuel savings is very, very small. Another thing is it's default on until you turn it off. Okay, that's another issue. And eventually it'll probably be you can't turn it off, because the whole idea, like, you know, a lot of the arguments that I heard that sound the most plausible is, well, if you're in a densely packed city, all these cars are running in traffic, then it creates all this pollution in that city. I was like, okay, you know, maybe you should solve the problem with traffic. You know, that maybe there's another solution to that besides every single car on the planet Earth have this feature implemented in each individual car and then default on, because it's not a common thing. Traffic jams are not a common thing all over the United States, only in tightly packed cities. Between cities and in open roads, there's no issues like that. And that's majority of United States, Canada, Mexico, all the places around in this area. So if you had a feature like, hey, for a couple extra $100, we'll put this feature in there to where it turns the engine off, and you can choose to turn it on when you want to turn it on. That's more reasonable. That's like, hey, you know, and then whoever wants to buy it, whoever wants to add it to their features and pay the extra $100 or whatever, couple $100, then they can do that. That's up to them whether they want to have it. But it's not rolled out that way. It's rolled out like, hey, this is something that you're gonna get whether you like it or not, and it's gonna be on when you start the vehicle. And the only way to, if you don't like it, you have to, every time you get in the vehicle, you have to turn it off, because it's automatically gonna come on. And there's no manufacturers having it to where you can turn it on and off or have it in the options list. It's like kind of forced upon you, standard equipment. So that's a feature that's an example of a feature that's not consumer driven, yet just thrown in the mix there. Another one is lack of spare tires. So spare tires, if you take out the spare tire, the vehicle weighs less, and then you get better fuel economy ratings, basically. So when you advertise the vehicle, you get a better, you know, fuel economy rating. But the average person, you know, a person who's somewhat reasonable, is not going to like the fact that they don't have a spare tire, especially if they're out somewhere and they get a flat tire in their vehicle and they can't just pump it up and then you keep on going, and which is in a lot of cases, because, you know, your tire a lot of times gets ruined when you get a puncture on the highway or on the road. So you don't have a spare tire, then what are you gonna do? Like, is gonna have to tow your vehicle somewhere? Like, you're gonna have to, like, what are you gonna, there's like a big problem relative to popping a spare tire on in 10 minutes and keep on going, you know. So that's a huge difference. Okay, so that's another example of things that are just like, hey, this is kind of government trying to comply with government regulations as far as fuel economy and stuff like that. It's not consumer driven. So at what point is this autonomous vehicle thing, the self-driving car, is going to be forced upon everybody? Because that's the direction. If you look at all the arrows, you look at all the benefits, like, hey, this is what we're doing, and this is this is the benefits you're going to have because we're doing it. So let's go to political action to make sure this gets done. So I'm completely against it. If you want to have a self-driving car, if you want to buy that, that's an option, fine. But as far as, and you want to drive it around, you know, it's a huge liability as far as I could tell. Also, even if it was perfected and there's zero chance of an accident, then you are giving up responsibility, and you're giving up control over what you're doing, which is not in the right direction, in which I think that is productive and healthy person would do, giving up things. Of course, like, say if we fly an airplane, right? Airplane has a pilot, and the pilot relies a lot of electronics to drive the vehicle, fly the plane. But most of that is in open air, in which you're far, far away from other planes. Typically, you know, you're not flying within feet of other planes. You know, so anyways, I can go on to this particular subject all day long because it's very disturbing to me, especially when you look at the directions. You know, if you're able to buy a vehicle, if you want to buy a vehicle, and there's enough demand that people are choosing to buy something, it's driven by the market, and as far as demand, people want it. Or even if it puts it out, manufacturers put it out there, and then people don't want it, or whether they want it or not is how it goes forward. That's fine. But the direction I'm seeing is it's going towards a forced situation in which you give up ownership of your car. You don't even have a parking spot at your house. You don't have a parking spot at wherever you go. You're dropped off at the curb, and you get in another vehicle that, you know, when you leave, and it takes you home. No, it's not. That's not anything I'm about. So let me know what you think in the comments, and let me know if you've looked at this at all, because it's something that I think people just kind of look at it like, oh, that's some kind of futuristic technology, but it's actually kind of getting implemented right now, and billions of dollars are being pushed into it. So, and the end goal in which they're talking about, as far as the benefits and how they're trying to sell it to people, they're telling people, hey, you know, all these things, but to achieve that goal, to achieve those benefits, requires a massive change and a massive stripping of rights, I guess you could say. And maybe in some communist country, they, you know, that's fine with them because they're already, you know, in that step mentality or whatever. But I don't think it's going to fly here in the United States, and so I'm certainly going to push back against it anyway. So let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you next time.